Welcome, everybody. It's great to see you here. Hi, I'm Meighan Brodkey. I am a technical architect at Exceed Consulting, as well as a community specialist and Salesforce MVP. I've been in the Salesforce industry for almost 12 years now. I started as a customer success manager with Salesforce right when I got out of college. From there, I became an admin. Then I became a developer, and I realized I really hate coding all day. That's not what I want to do. What I thought was a developer was really an architect, so I switched gears, and I decided to become a technical architect. From there, I just started working on my skill set and started going up. And about 5 years ago, I fell in love with the community cloud. Back then, it was first coming out. They had just gotten rid of portals. Chatter was very big and something Salesforce was pushing at that point in time. It was their big thing, and they had finally released Lightning communities. Very exciting time for Salesforce. Lightning was out. As we all know, most of us didn't switch over in our internal orgs to Lightning, but communities were Lightning, and that was the way to go for a community. Hopefully, most of us have switched over internally to Lightning as well, so we have that familiar feeling with Lightning now. But communities have been Lightning for a while. It's been a great place. Salesforce has invested quite a bit of money into the community cloud. Every release, you're getting new components, you're getting new themes, you're getting new templates. All sorts of functionality is continuously coming out with every single release. And that's what makes it so exciting. On top of that, your community is your way to present yourself not only to your internal users, but it's how you show who you are to your customers, to your partners, your investors. Everyone who looks at you, they get to see who you are from the outside. That's your community that shows through. So making sure that you're putting your effort into your community, going that extra mile, making sure that you've done it up right, it's absolutely worth it. And so today, hopefully you guys brought your laptops because we're doing a hands-on session on how to build your own community. So to get started, I'll give you a second to pull out your laptops for those of you that haven't pulled them out yet. And what you're going to want to do is log into your developer org or a Trailhead org. And when you're in your actual production orgs and you're building your own internal communities, you absolutely want to start in your sandbox. About 2 years ago, Salesforce came up with a way to actually deploy communities from a sandbox to prod. So exciting. You don't have to rebuild them from scratch anymore, which was a huge pain. Either you'd have to go back into site.com Studio, import, export, then you'd have to go into production, import it into prod, and then you had to check every page. Did all my stuff come over and did it format right? And there was a 90% chance that it didn't. But now that they have the ability to deploy, your stuff comes over properly. So always remember to use your sandbox. Things don't show up until you hit the publish button to be public, but it's still extremely important that you're not building in prod. That publish button is very easy to hit, and on top of that, you never build in production. So for those of you that don't have a community yet, so my screen looks a lot smaller. Your screen, okay, that one's big. Okay, so when you're in here, underneath Customize, yes, I am in Classic Setup. Okay, so here I am preaching about Lightning, but I know my Classic setup very well, so I would switch back to Classic for setup. But I do work in Lightning, I swear I do. This will also show up not in the Object Manager if you're in Lightning, but under the Features option in Lightning. But if you go into Customize, you can also use the Quick Find and type in Community Settings. And here you'll have an option, if you haven't already enabled communities, to hit a button that says Enable. Click that checkbox and hit Save. Once you do that, you then have the ability to build your community. So I'm going to give you all a second to hit that checkbox, go into Setup. And then the next place you're going to go is All Communities. So here's where you get an option to start building your communities. You get to have a lot of fun with communities and build a lot of different options. You have a build your own template, you have a help center, which doesn't really have a W. I'm just the queen of typos. You guys are going to notice that when I'm typing fast here. You have a partner management template. This is one of the templates you can get off the App Exchange. So on the App Exchange, you have the option to download what are called Bolt solutions. They're apps that are templates and themes for your community. You also have the option to do Partner Central, which is an out-of-the-box template. But we're going to start from scratch here and do new. And it's going to come up. In this first screen you see here that just got really, really tiny, here we go. This is where you have your different templates that are available to you. So I've actually downloaded this Summa Intelligence and Partner Management off the App Exchange, so you won't see those. But you will see the Help Center, the Customer Account Portal, Customer Service, Build Your Own, Partner Central. You may or may not see Aloha, depending on how old your org is. And then you have the old school Salesforce tabs and Visualforce, which we're definitely not doing. So the Help Center. So I don't know how many of you actually use Hulu or have heard of Hulu. So Help Center is what Hulu uses. Great example of a Salesforce community that's out there that a lot of people are using. The Customer Account Portal. So the difference between these templates, to give you a little bit of information. So for each one of these, you have different components that are going to be available to you out of the box. There are a ton of different out-of-the-box components out there, but each template you pick limits which ones you can actually pick. So my all-time favorite is to always go with customer service. This used to be called the Napili template. It has pretty much every single component that's out there. It is the least limited of them all. There are a few components that aren't included in here, but it has the most options, so I usually like to pick it. You can always use any custom components with any one of these. Build Your Own is the least component robust. It's really to help you pick out your own customizations and to go from scratch. It's very bare bones. But customer service is extremely robust. It has that classic Salesforce community look when you click on it, where you've got that search bar on top, and then you've got the navigation bar below. And we're going to want to hit Get Started. So here's where you can name your community. We're going to call this one You're Dreamin' 19. And then here you add your URL. When you're building a number of communities, you're going to want to add a suffix to your URL. This is going to help you distinguish all of them. They all have the same URL for the prefix and what your base URL is. So by adding that suffix to the URL, it's helping you distinguish between all of your communities. You get to add a custom domain at the end of this, all that you want. You can call it any URL that you want, but behind the scenes, it always has this URL that you give it. And so by doing that, you need to make sure to set it up so that you have something to separate out every one of those communities. Since nobody's ever going to see this if it was a real community, I'm just going to call it You're Dreamin' and hit Create. And now we're going to sit and do the waiting part. Super fun. So how many of you actually have a community that you guys are using right now? Awesome. Excellent. And is it customer or partner? Customer community? Partner community? Partner or customer? Customer plus? Okay. So, little bit about licenses. Is yours customer plus or customer? Okay. So customer community plus versus partner versus customer. All different options that all seem very similar, especially the customer versus customer plus, totally different. I once had a project where I had a client that they wanted customer community licenses. They wanted to save that 75 cents a license, $1 a license that their AE had promised them. And there are limits to every one of these licenses. They have different functionality. Partner licenses get all the sales objects, like opportunities, leads, things like that. Your customer community plus gets access to things like tasks, events, reporting. So here's this client. They wanted to get a customer community license only. Well, we're halfway through. We had warned them about all of these disadvantages to these licenses. Halfway through, they're like, well, we need you to build us reporting. Yeah, okay, do you know how much Salesforce has invested into reporting? We can't just build reporting. So making sure you pick the right license for what you actually need is extremely important. You do not want to get halfway through your build and realize they've already paid for 3 months of licenses, they're ready to go, and now they want to switch it. Because building reporting is not something you can do very easily. And if you want to give access to things like tasks and events, or access to opportunities when you don't have access to opportunities, it's not so easy. You have to build a mirror object, you have to copy the information over, you end up hitting limits, you end up hitting problems, you have duplicate data stored in 2 different places, you have sync issues. It's a pain. It's a huge pain. So I highly recommend spending time with your AE, figuring out what is it that you need in the beginning. Spend extra time on those requirements with your community. It's extremely important. Your licenses will trap you in. And the last thing you want to do is spend extra money on build that you didn't have to do. All right, so our community is now created. So we are in this space here. So you'll notice we have a lovely 7 little squares. This is called your community workspace. If you're a community manager or the person that is going to be building this community or managing, running, spending a lot of time moderating this community, you will see this screen all the time. So let's go over your squares. This one here is the community builder. This is where you actually get in and build your community. Here's your moderation. Here's where you can set up moderation rules. So if people are posting too many times in a row, if people are posting inappropriate words, inappropriate sayings, all of that can be taken care of in the moderation square. Then you have content management. This is where you're picking your topics. Topics are hashtags. For all of you on Twitter, we all know what hashtags are. It's wonderful. You can pick those key phrases, or you can actually give access on the profile for users to be able to create their own. But you can also limit them so that they can't use those continuously and have them become those like tagged keywords that keep coming up. Something that you can now limit. Didn't used to be able to do that. Gamification is a new square. Very exciting. You can set it up so that you have different badges, quote unquote, that people get for having, they've either achieved a goal or they've created a record or they've done something. People love badges. We all play Trailhead. We don't actually get a hold of those badges, but we love them. We love earning them. We love bragging about them. People will love doing the same thing in your community, too. Then you have dashboards. Extremely important to see who is doing what in your community. What are they getting done? What are they using? What knowledge articles are they actually looking at? What are they asking questions about? Who are your top performers in the community? Should you be reaching out to them? Absolutely. You know, you are becoming somebody that is building a brand. Your company is building your brand, and you're responsible for that by taking care of the community. Bring those people in, make them your MVPs, make them your stars of the show for who you are. Administration. This isn't what you think it is. It's not at all. So this is where you decide, should I turn on the leaderboard? Should I keep this theme? Should I have a welcome email? But a lot of your administration is also still in setup. That's where your profiles are. That's where your users are. This is not your all go-to for administration. It's like a mini administration zone where just some of your permissions are taken out. And then you have guided setup. Guided setup is awesome. Been doing communities for 5 years, and I still go to guided setup with every community that I set up. What it does is it lets you walk through the setup of different functionality. So you can do content management, you can do your, what is it called, the partner marketing. So you can have it set up as well as channel marketing, you can do leads, you can do opportunities, and it gives you step-by-step instructions on how to set up your sharing, how to set up your approval process, set up your workflow. It's really helpful to make sure you didn't forget something. Even if you went and you set it up before, just do a double check. Hop into guided setup and see what's there. But the very first thing we're going to do is go into the builder. And everything's going to get really small, I bet, again. So inside the builder, this is where we actually build the community, like I was saying. So we build our pages here, we drag and drop the components onto the page, we add different objects. All of that is managed here within the builder tile. We watch our little lightning dots, it's very exciting. I'm sure the suspense is killing you all. So, how long have you guys been working with Salesforce? Okay, there we go. All right, so so you get this pop-up, and I'm going to tell you now, you can't make it go away. You can hit the X as many times as you want. It's still going to come up when you go into the builder. And this is step 1 of 14. Just hit the X. The first time you go in, feel free to walk through it. It's great. It's really nice to know where stuff is. It's not something you have to do every time. All right, so here are the basics of your community. It looks pretty drab right now. We're looking kind of boring. We have no pictures. Everything's gray. But that's where everything comes in this little paintbrush. So you have these 4 items on the side. The first one is your components. So you have your out-of-the-box components that sit at the top, and they're divided into sections. This is supposed to help you be more organized. You also have the search, for those of us that think more alphabetically. It's a lot easier to find things when they're alphabetical, or when you just type in what you're looking for. But honestly, the first time that I came in here, probably for the first year, and after every release, I have no idea what all the new components are called, so I have to scroll through. So first couple of times you're in here, don't worry about it. You're going to be scrolling through to find stuff. That's totally fine. And then below all your out-of-the-box components, you will notice that you have your custom components. So anything you install from either the App Exchange, anything that you build, anything that a consulting company builds for you, that is going to show up in the bottom custom components section. And they will show up alphabetically. Very nice. Easy to find. And those are all drag and drop wherever you need to. You also have the section for your theme. So this is where all your branding comes into play. So remember, you are building out your brand with your community. This is your outside face to who your partners, your customers, your investors, everybody. So you need to make sure that what you have is showing who you are. So talk to marketing. Please talk to marketing. You do not want to be building your community and bring marketing in during UAT the very last week and have them say, none of these images are approved. We need to rebrand everything and have your project change. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes that. We've all been there. It's happened. People do it. But bring in marketing right away. They are going to have set images. They probably have beautiful images that go with every one of your topics already. You just don't know. Maybe you do know. Probably you don't know because marketing has them, but they're hidden on a file somewhere that nobody has ever been able to find. And the way that you can pick your colors can actually be by just uploading from an image. So let's say you have a really cool image for your logo. Say we have a cool You're Dreamin' logo that we wanted to upload. Let's actually grab one of those. And this is going to look really tiny to you guys. It looks really tiny to me too. But I'm doing this, and I'm doing right-click, save image as You're Dreamin'. And I'm going to throw it on my pictures. There we go. So if we hop back over to the community builder, when you go to select your image to upload, pictures, You're Dreamin'. And this is super handy. Chances are some companies are going to have actual hex codes that you need to put in there. Others are going to make it so that you can just upload from the image. But you'll notice that our colors changed for our buttons and for up here. These have all switched out. They may not look that different, but they do. Sorry. And so our colors have switched to match the branding. And then you also get to change your images. But one thing to note is your images actually change based on which template and which theme you have. So to give you a little bit of information about that, we're going to change our theme. because this old school Napili look is out of date. Salesforce has come up with this great option for you to pick themes. So themes and templates. I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember Winamp back in the day, if you guys ever used that back when you were in middle school, college. All right, so your version of Winamp, you always had the same functionality no matter what your version is, okay? But you could always change the skin of your Winamp because you needed it to match your favorite band. My Winamp always had Hanson on it, personally, because I was a big diehard Hanson fan in middle school, and that's when Winamp was popular. But, you know, to each his own. Some people had Metallica. Some people had Backstreet Boys. I don't know. Other people liked other boy bands. So your theme is just like your skin. It doesn't actually change which components are available, but it changes the look. Your template is going to change which components are available. These themes are available, though, with every single template. So you could get the help center, or you could get the customer service, and you could pick either one of these with it. But because you picked help center, you only have these components, but if you pick customer service, you have these components. So, I love that. I just dated myself with my Winamp there. I had somebody who looked at me like I was crazy. So some of these are really cool. Personally, I'm a big fan of Jepson. So this can either be two calls to action. One is, you're going to rename these buttons, obviously. But you can also have a search bar that goes in there, too. So it's a lot of fun. It's really cool to switch around. And that's actually what we're putting on right now. So we're going to hit Activate Theme. You know, some of those other ones look kind of like a WordPress site with your tiles. Some of them look like it's just focused on the search. It all depends on what you're doing. If you have a really knowledge-centered community, perhaps you want the search front and center, because people are going to be searching for things. But the great thing about these different themes is that you have that functionality, that option now to make changes and to make things set up how you want them to look without having to do an entirely custom theme. About 3 years ago, your only option was to go 100% custom dev, and that was the only way to change the look of your community. Now you don't have to do that. Now Salesforce has gone and made these options. So we've added a custom theme. We're using the customer service template. We still have search. It's still up here. So we still have that option. But now we have this way prettier picture in the front instead of that navigation bar and the search. We still have a navigation menu, too. It's just in a different place. And one of the options with these different hero units, so the hero is when you have a big picture that sits in the front. So like I was saying, you can have a call to action or a search. You can set up what your picture is. We can switch it out. I'm going to switch this to that You're Dreamin' logo. And you can have it either scale to fit, tile, anything you want to do there. And then my favorites, though, is you can actually make it smaller. So if you don't need your hero to be that big, you can shrink it down. So your Dreamin' can be about, let's make it there, 66. Perfect. And then you have your content. So you have different blocks of text that are on here. We're not building a dream home, so we'll just get rid of that. And our mission, and we'll get rid of this. Boom. So now we have, oh, and that one actually cut the image too small. All right, we're going to make it a little bigger. Sorry, guys. This is part of the fun part with communities. You get to play around with stuff, see what actually fits. 144. There we go. All right. So now we have our pretty logo that's taking up the top half of our page. We have the little welcome headline. These headlines, you can use them all sorts of places. I love dropping them, actually, on top of my list views that come with the objects that I add to actually announce what the object is. Yeah, you can use the list view, but when you use, so let's actually look at it together. All right, so you'll notice here, these are your different pages that come out of the box. Some of your pages are there for you to make life easier, and then you can also add new pages as well. So when you're in here, and we scroll through, you'll notice that we have the case list. Fun blue dots. All right. So here's a record list. This is telling us cases and all closed cases. You have the option here to change your layouts. Not all of the time do you want to give your users the ability to switch which list view they are looking at. Sometimes you want a single list view available to them. And that's where it comes into play to switch it to the standard. And we'll do, So now you'll notice that this is just switched to having that view set. Users can't change it now. They're not going to be able to switch it around. Yes, there are reasons you would want to do this. You can also switch it to a compact view, which is really nice if you put it in a sidebar. And you can do like a highlight of the top 5 cases of the day, or the 5 most popular knowledge articles, or your open ideas, things like that that are just things that people are looking at. Now, mind you, ideas are not a standard list view. You would have to make a custom component for that. But there are components out there that do it for you. So you'll notice that you can get ideas components on the Idea Exchange. All sorts of different Idea Exchange components that are out there. But coming up with these different views and having these different setups so that you can have them available for different places. Because when you actually have that full view, you couldn't use it anywhere else besides a page by itself. And there's so many other places where you want to have a list of items. All right, so going into page structure. So one thing that happens sometimes is you'll have a custom component on your page, and then all of a sudden a section just disappears. It happens. It happens. It's not ideal. It's not what you wanted. It usually means you have to make some tweaks in your component, and something went wrong with the code. And one of the ways to get that off the page so you can get your page back is to use this page structure section. And what you can go in and do then is go in and just hit the little trash can next to that custom component. In addition, it lets you see everything that's on your page. Sometimes components don't have data in them. Your top 5 knowledge articles are not going to show anything until you actually have ratings on your knowledge articles and views. So you're not going to see that component until people are actually using the community, be it in testing or in real life, but nothing's going to show there. So it's going to look like a blank space. So to know that that component is actually there, the page structure component helps as well. And then to go into our last little gear, you have the settings. Now, mind you, when you are giving instructions for people to click on the gear, you need to be specific. Do you want them to click on the gear on the side or the gear on the top? It can be confusing. But the gear on the side here, we have your general settings. Notice you can set up your community to be public. If you have a public community, you do not need to buy licenses, just so you know. Great little free functionality available with Salesforce are free communities for unauthenticated users. You also have the community title. This is for you. You also can tell whether or not your community is published. Once it's published, it is out there. Just remember that. Once you publish, everyone can see your community. Scrolling down, you can set your navigational topics and your featured topics. 2 different types of topics used in 2 different ways. Your navigational topics are in that navigational bar in a drop-down. Your featured topics go on tiles on a component. Then you have your theme. So this is exactly what we were picking out before. We can always go back to our previous theme, and if we had been customizing it, we're not going to lose anything. We have that option to go back to how we had customized it, or we can even refresh it if we wanted to, but we don't have to lose everything. You can make your communities multi-language. This is awesome. This is so cool. I have used this before. It is a lot of fun. So when you make a multi-language community, you work with both the translation workbench to translate things like your custom fields, your labels, etc. But then you can go in here, add another language, and when you hit export, this lets you actually translate the content that you have typed into the community directly. So separate from the translation workbench translations, but still needs to be used with it. You can also use the Google Cloud Translation. But I don't know if any of you have actually used Google for translations. I do not recommend it. I do not recommend it. You come up with some crazy stuff that shows up on your community. I had a client use Google Cloud for their translations. It did not go well. It did not go well. CMS Connect. One of my favorite pieces of communities is CMS Connect. So I actually did another webinar on this, this topic and presentation. So CMS Connect lets you connect to external sources. This isn't CMS in your traditional CMS, but at the same time it is. It lets you connect to Adobe AEM, WordPress, Drupal, and just bring that content directly in. Now you cannot, if you use the out-of-the-box components for your CMS Connect, you don't get a format. So you can end up with some weird-looking WordPress posts and formatting for how it actually came over into the community, but you don't have to rebuild your content, which is what really matters. And the idea of having to keep up with your blog in both WordPress and Salesforce and to have to maintain it in both places, you don't get views here, but you get views here. Oh, they have to leave your community to actually go and see your blog otherwise. It's a pain. It's not the way you want to run things. I mean, you're hurting yourself that way. So by having CMS Connect, you can bring that information in. There's also a new native CMS, which is a place to put up news articles, announcements. They're going to be coming up with different record types for the articles, so they don't have to be just news. They could be blogs, etc. But that's also available. This one here for CMS header and footer is to bring over your header and footer in HTML, CSS, JavaScript into your actual community to reuse it. Your advanced section here actually lets you go through and put in your Google Analytics tracking. You have an entire set of Google Analytics dashboards that come with your community that you can install in Google Analytics. If you're not using them already, I highly recommend them. Let me know. I've got a deck about it if you need it. Then you also have security. So a lot of this, you see some of these that are actually inside the Salesforce security. When you actually go in, you have click check protection, you have your CSP. They have a separate control for your community now to keep that separate. Your developer section is to export, where you can actually take out your theme, take out your pages, take out your template. And then you can post these on the App Exchange, or you can just install them in another org. Super handy, great way to package things. And then updates. Pretty much every release, you're going to get an update. Something is going to update in your community that you're going to need to test. Test it in your sandbox. Must have been like a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, they came up with an update to the way login pages worked. And they now use the same branding as the rest of your community. The login pages all got wiped out when you hit that update button and all went back to scratch. It was crazy. So test it in your sandbox before you put it into prod. But we're going to do the fun part now, and with our remaining 10 minutes, 15 minutes, we're gonna actually build something. So we're gonna add a new page. So you have two options here. You can add a standard page or an object page. You'll notice that you've got three little things here that come with your object page. It's because you get the object, you get the list page, and the related list page. Okay, what is the related list page? It seems kind of weird, but yeah, there is actually a separate page for related lists that is available to you separately. You barely see it. It's very hard to get to within the actual community, but it does exist. I can tell you it does, because you can get to it within the little page manager. But we're first going to do an object page. And we want to add accounts. So we'll hit create, and you'll see detail, list, and related. You can hit this little checkbox that says don't show me again, and hit create. Internet's warming up, it's getting faster. All right. And so you'll notice that our page was created here. One thing about these pages is they always create with this record information tabs page layout, which has the chatter post to the side, details and related. You may or may not have chatter on every object enabled. And you may or may not want chatter on everything in your org. So you can actually go in and next to account detail, click on the 3 little dots. Then you can scroll down. And you'll notice here that you can change what your actual page layout is. So if you wanted to change it to be a 2-column layout and maybe have the related list on the side and then the detail in the main section, I think we should do that for accounts. So switched our page. What's up? So can you control it by record type, or is for all opportunities the same? All right. We'll get to that part next. OK. So we'll delete this, and then do detail. And I dropped it in the footer. So they do have audience targeting in communities, but it doesn't work the exact same that it works within standard Lightning. So you would go into audience to hit assign and hit new audience. And then here you have their criteria that you can pick from. It's actually based on the user, not based on the record. There is an idea on the idea exchange to make it based on the record type, and that is something that I too have brought up with Salesforce, because I think that it would be so valuable to have a dynamic based on a field value or record type or something that is actually on the record, something besides the user. Because the user is the same for every record, so it's going to be the same for that user all the time. But, yep, yeah. Exactly. Because they call it audience targeting and not dynamic components. That's why it's not the same. But yeah, so you actually have to pick an audience. But one thing that's really cool is you can do this based on location. And I don't know if anyone has ever tried to build a community for France, but they have extremely strict rules in certain industries. And I worked with a company that was in the medical industry, and trying to get past French regulations for the medical industry was extremely difficult. And so we had to build our own location capabilities on a Visualforce site before Lightning communities were out and had this functionality. And then a year later, this comes out. And we rebuilt the whole thing in Lightning. But yeah, because we had to base it on the account. Because it wasn't technically based on the user. Because there was really no way for us to do that without like extremely heavy dev work that they weren't willing to pay for. So yeah, we instead went and built them a whole new community in Lightning a year later. But yeah, no way to actually base it on the record itself. And then I'm actually going to pull my related list over. Can click. Is that where I wanted it? There we go. And so yeah, so now I've taken away chatter from the account page. We've made it a 2-column page, because we really don't want any of our customers chattering or seeing what we chatter about their accounts. So clean that up a bit. Now they can go in and check it out. Easy peasy. And then 9 whole minutes. I'm not going to be able to get into too much else. So let's do questions. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to keep rambling. All right, I'm going to do more. All right, so I'm going to jump back over into the content management section and show you guys, or into the workspace and show you guys gamification. So this is the, yeah. Right. It opens automatically when a record is viewed when they click on it. Yeah. Just like inside Salesforce. Yeah. Yeah. But they just don't have dynamic components. All right, so recognition. This is pretty cool, and they're actually putting more into recognition right now, so this is getting enhanced with each release. And so you have to have work.com on to be able to use recognition. But once you enable it, you get to set up these recognition badges. So you have a couple that are set up for you in advance. And you can decide who's actually allowed to give out recognition badges versus who's not, just like in work. Then you can set people on missions. What do they need to go and do to be able to get badges? And it's kind of fun. Just like in Trailhead, they have to go and complete certain tasks. So go in here, click New. It's loading. All right. So that's supposed to let me type in there, so I think we're just going to leave that one. But anyways, you type in what their mission is. Do they need to create the record? Do they need to create X number of records? Do they need to like so many posts? Do they need to comment on so many posts? And by doing that action in your community, that's how they get their recognition. And I love that they're recognition badges for gamification. So eventually, the theory is that there's going to be more here. It's going to be more gamified. You're going to be able to do more with it. You're going to be able to add on to it. And previously, there was only the internal work.com option for badges. Anything else, you would have to go with something like Bunchball or any other custom app to be able to do any sort of gamification. But now there's actually that own out-of-the-box option for you to be able to do that. Then going into content management, this is where I was talking about before, that you can actually do your own connections to Salesforce. So if you wanted to do, so this is where their native CRM comes in. So you can connect to something in Salesforce, you can write something within the community workspace, or you can do a CMS connection to an external CMS. Those are the 3 different ways that you can bring in CMS data into your community. What's one disadvantage, though, is it doesn't connect to files. And honestly, I think that would be one of the coolest options to have for some of the way the CMS components work, is to be able to have files displayed that way. There's only one out-of-the-box component for files right now, and it's not the prettiest component. So if any of you are hanging out on the idea exchange, vote for files on the CMS components. Just an idea. Yep. So yeah. And then we also have, to show you the moderation. All right. All right, so here is moderation. So you get to set up your rules here. And what's crazy is about, I think it was 2015, Salesforce had a bunch of moderation rules that actually came with your orgs. Then they took them away. And out-of-the-box moderation rules didn't come with for orgs for like 2015 up until, I think it was like 2018, and now they're starting to come in orgs again. But there was a list of 2,500 words that were blacklisted for you to be able to turn on with your community and phrases. And it was a very good list of words that I don't think most people would have thought of that many words and phrases to blacklist until somebody posted them. So yeah, definitely worth turning on. If you have a community, you don't think people are going to need moderation until they say something inappropriate. So yeah, I would give it a shot. Being somebody that's had to moderate before, they do. They do. So even though it's a professional situation, not everybody thinks the same. So, all right. Other than that, I'm getting the wrap-up signal, so I'm gonna stop, and I will take questions afterwards. All right. Thank you, guys.